Welcome to ECGenius. In this first lesson, we'll be going over some ECG basics as well as leads. So let's start off by looking at three different scenarios. So in this first one, we have our recording electrode up here, and we have a wave or charge or depolarization moving towards the electrode, like so. So whenever you have a charge moving towards an electrode, you're going to end up with a positive deflection on the EKG strip. Now let's say you have a similar charge that's now moving away from the recording electrode. In that case, you will get a negative deflection on the EKG for that appropriate electrode. Now let's look at a more interesting scenario where you have a charge that is first moving closer to the electrode and then moving away. What kind of EKG finding would we expect to see? So first you can have a positive deflection as the charge moves closer, and then as it starts to move away from the real electrode, you're going to get a negative deflection. And those are sort of the basic principles of how an EKG recording works. So now let's move on to talking about leads. First, we're going to look at the limb leads. So the four main electrodes that are placed on a patient to obtain these leads are going to be your right arm electrode, left arm electrode, right leg electrode, and left leg electrode. So for the purposes of an EKG, the right leg electrode is used as a ground. So that means, in simple terms, it gets rid of any potential background noise. So we will be focusing on these three electrodes to obtain our leads. Our first lead, lead 1, is obtained by using the left arm electrode as the recording electrode, and it compares everything to the right arm electrode. So charges that are moving from the right arm electrode to the left arm will be recorded as positive in lead 1. Lead 2 is formed with the left leg electrode being used as a positive recording electrode, so charges moving in this direction will be positive. And your last limb lead is lead 3, which is formed with your left arm and left leg electrodes, with charges moving down being recorded as positive. Next, we're going to move on to the augmented leads. They're called augmented leads because they're formed by taking the middle of two different electrodes and using that as the reference, and then using one of the other three electrodes as the reading one. For example, to get our AVF lead, we're going to be looking at charges moving towards the left leg electrode and comparing them to a 0 point that is in between the right arm and left arm electrode. In a similar fashion, we can get our AVL lead. So charges moving from here towards the left arm electrode will be recorded as positive. And then we also get our AVR lead. Together, these three give us our three augmented leads. And if we add back in our three limb leads, we get many different views of the heart that we can look at from different directions. And the way we can realign them is by sort of shuffling them around the AV node. So now we have these different leads that all look at the heart from different degrees around in about 30-degree intervals. For the precordial leads, let's pretend we are looking at a horizontal cross-section of the heart. So we have our spine up here and the sternum down here. We have, on the EKG, 6 electrodes that are used to give us these 6 precordial leads. The 0 point or comparison point for these electrodes ends up being the AV node, which is the average of the other electrodes. So what this means is any wave of depolarization moving from the AV node towards one of these electrodes would give a positive deflection in the associated lead on the EKG printout. These 6 precordial leads can be grouped. You have your V1 and V2 as your septal leads because they give you the best view of the septum and the right ventricle. V3 and V4 give you the best look of the interior of the heart. And V6 and V5 give you the best lateral view of the heart. All of these leads give you different views of the same heart and its electrical activity, which is important for localizing certain pathologies, as we will discuss in future lessons.